Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a esta sesión de Juego Libre para niños con discapacidades motoras severas. Vamos a hacer todo en inglés. Los invitados, porque hablan inglés perfectamente, y yo para no ser discordante en la mesa. De todas maneras, el que necesite los cascos, pues los va a necesitar. Okay, thank you very much for coming to this session. We will start very quickly because we have a lot of things to speak about, and we are a bit late, as you know. So today we are really very happy to be able to have this round table. The idea is to have a brief presentation of this round table and the participants. After that, we will have some discussions. We have some questions for them, and maybe at the end some conclusions, and you want to have questions. But we are going to be very short on time because, you know, it's only 1 hour. And we have a lot of things to discuss. So let me to explain why we are facing this topic. All of you know about the cognitive benefits of playing, and especially they are beneficial for people, for children. The cognitive structures enhance or rise with the play, and play also has been used frequently as a tool for learning and rehabilitation. But in many cases, play usually is something free that children naturally do, but many children with severe motor disabilities have not the opportunity of playing freely. Only they can play mediated by another person. We think that the free play is very beneficial, and for this reason we invited some people that are experts in this field, and we will try to learn from them if this is true or not. So the objective of this session is to deepen on the requirements of methodologies and tools that could allow children with severe motor disabilities to play freely. So, as I told you before, we are very lucky having here in this table, alphabetically, Kimberley Adams, Luis Azevedo, and Serenella Besio. They are very important experts in this field, and the best thing, in my opinion, that all of them are academic people, but they have a long practical, real experience with children. So they are not theoretical people. They have a fantastic experience of the real activity. So they know the field by their own experience. It is difficult to swap from one to the other, one presentation to the other, so I will do a very short presentation of each one. You have more data about them in the web page, and after that they will have 5 minutes each to give you a short idea of their experience and their ideas, and after that we will discuss some questions about the topic. So, as you can see, they have a very long experience. I don't want to read everything, but I wanted to mention that Kimberley Adams is an associate professor in the Faculty of Rehabilitation Medicine at the University of Alberta in Canada. She collaborated with the ICANN Center for Accessibility Assistive Technology, and she teaches assistive technology. He's researching in something which is very interesting for us, that is the use of robots to allow children with physical disabilities to engage in play and learning activities. Oh, sorry. And as I told you, she has 20 years of clinical experience in the area of assistive technology. I could have been speaking about Kim's experience for longer, but forgive me, I will go to Luis Azevedo. He is the oldest one in this table, so he's the most experienced person. He is the director of ANDITEC, a Portuguese company for assistive technology. Formerly, he was a researcher on assistive technology at the Technical University of Lisbon, and he did a PhD degree in the University of the Basque Country in Spain, and he has been working in many European projects for assistive technology, and he also has been expert for the European community, planning projects and calls and so on. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is that he has a long clinical experience in collaboration with the Center for Children with Cerebral Palsy in Lisbon, and also with the hospital in Lisbon for ALS affected people. Serena Besio is a full professor of special education at the University of Bérgamo in Italy. And I also wanted to underline that formerly she was a speech therapist for children with cerebral palsy. And after that, she moved to the field of assistive technologies. And he's researching in the use of assistive technology for individual autonomy and the free play of children with disabilities. So I don't want to take more time from them because the real people are them. So we will start in this same order alphabetically, because it's not it's not easy to decide who should start. Okay, let me see. Move to Kim's. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's very nice to be here. My research program has been around physical access to play, so around object play. When children want to play with objects, it's so important to their development. They learn lots of cognitive skills, they learn the object properties, they learn the language of what is that thing, social skills like taking turns. And when children have physical limitations, maybe they can't reach or grasp those items, they're losing out on a lot of opportunities. And so we are wanting to give children those opportunities. So for instance, this young man on the right, he has 3 locations on his body that are controllable for him. He can move his head to hit that switch. He can move his hand to hit one of those 2 round switches on his lap tray. So those are his ways to control the world. And so he can use those to control maybe an augmentative communication device, so he can say some things. And he can also use those to control, next slide, assistive robots for augmentative manipulation. So in my program, I have, along this continuum, I do some work that's what can impact people now, because I work with that assistive technology service, and they want to be able to buy things off the shelf and have parents use them at home. And then also in the long term, how can we research and develop technology to be better? So at the Impact Clients Now side, we've been using little Lego robots because they're low cost and pretty easy to program. And we've been able to do quite a bit with them. So for instance, this boy on the left, well, both of them are using 2 switches, one on each side of their head. The boy on the left has more skills. He's able to use those switches to control scanning on his augmentative communication system. So he's got lots of options for talking, for controlling the robot commands, and in this case, he's pulling a string with his robot along a pathway. Whereas the other boy on the right, has lower skill controlling the switches presently. What he can do so far, move his head to the left to make the robot go left, move his head to the right to make the robot go to the right. So he can make choices what he wants to do, and then a helper can fill in the rest of the task for him. Next slide. And so we've been able to facilitate lots of play activities for children. When we started out doing structured sorts of play, where we'd say, okay, here's a little pathway for you. You deliver messages to your friend over here that's what this little girl is doing on the top left. Or things like act out a story, that's what's happening on the bottom left, using the robots as characters and manipulating the toys. But then they ended up doing their own free play, which was really fun to watch. So one time we had trees and castles and princesses, and we wanted a child to bring the princess over to the castle, but instead she went running off with the tree. She had the robot grab the tree, and turns out she wanted to decorate the tree because it was Christmas. And so that was really nice to see how the children were embracing it as a tool to access whatever play they wanted. And so this occupational therapist, great occupational therapist, Adriana Rios, worked with us to do her PhD. And she studied when children do free play with their mothers, who are often their playmate of children with disabilities. And first, in a baseline, they played normally like they ordinarily would, and then the children learned how to use the robot in the intervention. And what we saw was children's playfulness increased once they had access to that toy. They were able to do things like engage and determine what was going to happen, make more social interactions. And the mother's directiveness in the play actually went down once the child had access to that tool. So those were really important things to see. But we also saw that the technology had some limits, and I'll talk about those later though.
Okay.
So that's it for me.
5 minutes, sure.
This one, esta. Tienes dos.
Es la otra.
La otra.
La otra tiene los...
Sí.
Sí.
Okay.
Because I need to... Gracias. Entonces tú sabes. Porque necesito de controlarla.
Sí,
no,
no,
ese no da para controlar. Can you give me water, please? Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. I can speak in Portuñol or in English, so I'm going to speak in English. And I'm going to talk about the importance of augmentative mobility for, which one is the, okay. The importance of augmentative mobility for children, for all children, including children with the disability. The expert on play is Serenella Besio. My background is as an engineer, rehabilitation engineer, so I try to contribute for this field. When children are not able to move freely, to be mobilized freely, the so-called cycle of deprivation comes up. So if the child has no mobility, then he has reduces opportunities for play and exploitation. He has lack of stimuli, less experience of control confidence, again, reduced opportunities for play and exploration, frustration, reduced motivation, and so on. And this is a circle that comes up when children are not able to play independently or to move independently. So a short sentence about the importance of augmentative mobility. Independent mobility becomes the ability to become a social interactor rather than a passive observer. And unfortunately, most of the time, children with severe disabilities are mere passive observers and not active social interactors. So we have developed a project many years ago. It's still, I would say, not finished. It's called the INMAC vehicle. We have produced an industrial prototype. These are some photos of the prototype. It's a very nice vehicle that allows the children to move independently. One of the basic things are some ultrasonic sensors that detect the obstacles and provide some information for the child. So we have made several tests of the DINMAC prototype in the Center for Cerebral Palsy Children in Lisbon. Now it has been used in the center for 2 years. And I'll just show very briefly some videos that can show you how the vehicle performs. So this is the vehicle. The vehicle has several levels of activity, let us say. So this is just to show the first level when the vehicle is totally independent and can drive the child in any type of physical environment. When it counts an obstacle, it stops. It gives an indication, visual indication and audio indication. It avoids the obstacle if it is in the proper level, and then it goes around for as long as it is necessary. Not only physical obstacles, but also obstacles that are moving like persons. Okay, this is the vehicle can be controlled by any of the available interfaces in the market. That means by direct selection or by indirect or scanning selection. This is he has a special consola. This is the vehicle being driven by a child with direct control. Most of these children are in the level 4 and 5 level of gross motor function. So usually they use the scanning method when they are using their communication aids, but most of them have the tendency, I would say, to use direct selections when they are driving the car. The last video, or before the last, is a child using driving the vehicle with a scanning process. So with just one touch of the head in a switch, he is able to drive the vehicle, because the vehicle stops when he encounters an obstacle, and then he decides to go left, right, back, and so on. Wait, no. So finally, I just want to show you. Okay. Last seguinte. These are children with severe disabilities. As I said, all of them with the gross motor function 4 and 5, driving and enjoying playing together with the different vehicles. So these vehicles with this vehicle, it is possible to really enjoy the joy of playing, including with their peers. As a conclusion, previous conclusions of this project, so it provided autonomy and power for children to play and move independently. Very important, children were able to have success. They have improved communication and interaction, including with the peers. They have increased their self-confidence and their self-esteem. And because they had a very nice vehicle, they have acquired higher status among their peers. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis.
Good evening. I would like only to say some words about the project. It was not a project, it was an action, a cost action of the European Commission, because I have been the chair of LUDI, Play for Children with Disabilities, from 2014-2018. And unfortunately, I don't have such interesting videos to show you, but I would like to speak about some ideas, the ideas that were at the basis when we started. So LUDI has been and is, if you want, a network, an interdisciplinary network. I need my glasses. Of 32 countries, including Russia and also Israel, and including almost 100 researchers and practitioners in various fields, because it was a multidisciplinary network, to study the topic of children with disabilities. Our scopes were to spread awareness on the importance of giving children with disabilities the opportunity to play. I think that this is not so spread in families, for example, and also in some cases in teachers and in rehabilitation professionals. So to put the play at the center of multidisciplinary research and intervention for children with disabilities. We would have liked also to create new ideas, new methodologies and tools in various fields related to play and children with disabilities under the technological, scientific, societal and political level. Our flow chart was, according to us, incontrovertible because it was so logic. Play has been recognized as the most crucial activity in childhood, in the childhood of every child, for cognitive and social development. And any child has the right to play according to the Convention on the Right of the Child. But children with disabilities experience difficulties in playing as the other peers. So, children with disabilities must not be deprived of play, and children with disabilities should be assured the full opportunity to claim the accomplishment of the right to play. So Why? Because simply they are children. So the way of reasoning is so logic that I think that for this reason also the European Commission decided to finance this this action, because it is something really convincing persons who are not in the field. To reach our goals, what have we done? So we have tried to revitalize the field of study of play and also the field of disability, because when we consider them together, things change a little bit, through meeting, discussion and deep literature analysis. And we adopted the definition of play. We organized a study about types of play, also types of impairments. We studied environmental barriers and the facilitators, and also topics more technical, such as usability, accessibility of tools, products, toys, and technologies. We would like to give to this scientific field a more stable and reliable structure. If we don't have a structure of this type, we cannot do research, we cannot do science in this field. So we need reliable tools and also very, very stable definitions and statements. We have adopted the general frameworks and methodological models such as ICF, CY, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and also the ISO definitions, and in particular biopsychosocial model, I mean the ICF, the inclusive model, because we think that all our studies about play of children with disabilities should be considered in inclusive context. Children with disabilities should play with their peers in inclusive context. And also the participatory approach in research and experimentation, that is giving the possibility to children with disabilities and their family to take part to experimentations and also to research. Our idea, we did not speak about free play. We prefer to use the expression play for the sake of play, just to be sure that it was clear that we are interested in that part of the play which does not have a different scope other than play itself. We are not, we know that we have a lot of ludic activities in the rehabilitation field, educational field, but we are interested mainly in the autonomously driven play by the children. What we produced 4 books, 5 books in reality, because there is an additional one published 2 days ago. And these books are available from our site, and they are open access. They are in English, but they are totally free, and you are welcome to read it and to write to us your comment. You're very, very welcome. And also a tool, the usability tool for, the evaluation tool of usability of toys. This has been written and prepared by 3 members of Ludi, and one of them is IQ. Perhaps you know IQ in Alicante, which is an interesting institution here in Spain, which has in charge the evaluation of toys, and in that case also the evaluation of usability of toys. Then we produce also material for raising awareness, but above all I would like to say that we produce 2 training schools for including children and families of children with families and children with disabilities, together with professionals of different coming from different fields. Children prepared some questions from their part. They would like to play with something or to play a particular type of play, and we organized during this week, we designed possible toys for them possible way of playing for them. This was done with the designers, was done with the engineers, with the occupational therapists and researchers. And we had 2 editions of this training school, but we would like to multiplicate and to replicate this school as a model around Europe. So we have still a lot of things to do. We need support of all people involved in this field who would like to involve in this field, and we would like to try to restart with a sort of Ludi. This is our website if you are interested in, and please contact us if you would like to have more information or to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much to the 3 speakers. After these short position statements, as I told you, I wanted to propose some questions, and we will discuss them. It's not easy. Okay, so the first question is how play affects cognitive development of children with severe motor disabilities. The protocol is that each one can speak when he wants. So just take the word when you want. Okay?
I can say
Yes.
something if you want. Of course, if a child cannot move by himself or herself, many kinds of play can be not efficient and not funny as they could be if the child could move. So we in Ludi, we organized the types of play in 4 different studies, different types. The first one is the practice play. A practice play is the play played by newborn and the very young children. And when they use tools and they use toys, they are small toys. And usually this kind of play is not feasible by children with motor impairment. And this starts in depriving them from some information that could come from this kind of play. For example, weight, for example, the way of manipulating things without breaking them, or how to make two objects working together, or making noise with 2 objects and something like that. But then the second type of play is symbolic play, when the children use things as they were different things. This is more related to imagination and to fantasy, and to this in principle could not be a play that children with motor impairment are deprived by, but I think that we should make some difference in this question, because in case children with disabilities have also some intellectual disability associated or other types of impairment, in that case also symbolic play could be difficult. And then the third type is constructive play, and constructive play, for example, is the play with Lego, or with the small train that you can build up and then use. And also this, Kim already mentioned before that they tried to create a possibility to use, thanks to the robotics, this and to make this type of play. And finally, the role play or the game is a play that could be very difficult to make by children with motor impairment for two reasons. One is that in some cases, these games could be difficult from an intellectual point of view, a cognitive point of view, but the other one is that they could be very difficult to be used for the motor impairment. And the third is that very often these children, when they are successful, when they succeed in using things, they are not very quick in their movements. And when you play a game with a peer, the issue of time could be very important. So in that case, other issues come, and they should be solved also by technology. So how it is affected. It is affected in many ways, but I would like to underline, it depends on the kind of play, and we should consider very carefully the types of play if you want to build up new tools and a new proposal for these children to play. We need to be very precise, not only in understanding the impairment of the children, but also the kind of play that we would like to implement.
Okay, thank you. Let me to interrupt this question. Me piden que avise que las personas que tienen reservada la visita a las 5:30, que se pueden ir. Casi no nos vamos a enfadar cuando se vayan. Por otro lado, continuamos. Yeah, okay, so would you like to say something about this question?
No, not about this.
No,
Thank you.
not you. Okay, you have completely discovered the problem. So maybe it's included in the previous question. I don't know if it is any of you wanted to speak about why the ludic experience is important, or you consider that we can move to
Me again?
Any of you? Okay, you will speak about do you think that is...
I can say something. The ludic experience is, we don't know why it is important, but we know that all the children all over the world play. We know that children played when in all the times of the humankind, and we know also that animals play, and also bees are able to play. So there is something very mysterious and something very interesting in this activity, and perhaps it is important also from a biological point of view. We are not sure, but it could be. Why it is important in this context we are discussing? Because through play, children are able to experience life and to experience how to do things, and also they are able to make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, but these mistakes are funny, and they don't have any severe consequence, and through these mistakes they can learn, and they, above all, can create relationships with their peers. So this is one of the most important things that the ludic experience is important. When a child meets another child, the first thing to become friend with him, the first thing he says is, let's play too, because play is something that relates persons together, especially children. So this is particularly very important for children with disabilities, because this is the key for relationships and for inclusion.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question. What are the differences of pre-play and human-mediated play? Maybe Kim?
Well, here I am only the engineer, and I drink the words of Serenella, because she's one who has the strongest base. We need, really, as she mentioned, we need...
He's a sponsor. I paid him.
a scientific basis for this. This is an interdisciplinary area. As you can see, both me and Kim are rehabilitation engineers. Serenella is a speech therapist and psychologist also, no? And we strongly need a scientific basis for this. What she mentions about the play for the sake of play, it seems a very simple thing, but it's a very complicated thing. So I advise you to read the books they have published, the 5 books they have published, because you have a very good basis. And we hope when we are discussing this concept of the car this morning with some people that are going to cooperate with us, is the protocol for evaluation. We don't want the children to feel that they have been evaluated, but we need to find out if what they are doing and how they are doing it is important or not important for their overall development. So what are the differences between, what was your question? I forgot. What are the differences between free
play and human-mediated play?
And human-mediated play? Well, I strongly believe in free play, but I don't know how it is possible without como se diz? Without well, I would say that the free play it's very important. Unfortunately, or with children with disabilities, many times people have the tendency to intervene. They have the tendency to, as they can't move, they move for themselves. If they can't manipulate, someone is manipulating by themselves. So it's difficult to find out a good mediated play for them.
That leads nicely into one of the things that I wanted to bring up about that question about the human help maybe sometimes is over-helping. And actually, when we're expecting children to control a robot, we're expecting an awful lot of them. We need them to know way more than the typically developing child doing the manipulation. We need them to know pressing a switch causes an effect. We need them to know lifting their hand off of it causes the robot to stop. We need to know this makes the robot go one way, this makes the robot go another way, and then how to combine those things to make the robot go where you want. That's a lot. And so when we're prompting children to try to help them learn those skills, we may be over-prompting and taking away their opportunities for learning and making mistakes and those sorts of things. So one thing that technology can do is provide prompting with more rules, and waiting a certain amount of time before providing a prompt. But we need to know an awful lot more in order to provide those prompts properly too, though. Like, if I have an automated system that's watching or prompting, it needs to watch. If that child's already reaching for the switch, don't tell the child, hit the switch. Or if they're looking at the switch, they're probably going to reach for it. So there's a lot of intelligence that we could build into our systems in order to be a little bit more helpful and not over-helpful.
Then there is also, according to me, another aspect. Kim is referring to particular situation of play when the child should use switches, and it is very, very particular. But when for example, a child with disability play with a humanoid robot or something like that, I think that it could be that the human enters within this display. but the important thing is that the human, the man, or the adult, becomes a player himself or herself, because if it acts as a teacher or as a mediator, mediator is not as a prompter, the person who gives some prompt, now do this and do this and this. This is no more play. So I think that we can include human adult within the play situation together with the peers.
Thank you. So we can move to the next question. How technology, robotics, virtual reality, etc., can help in providing free play experiences to children with severe motor disabilities? Anyone? The engineer?
We have robotic engineers here.
We have tried to come out with a solution for that, but as I mentioned, we need, from the technical point of view, it's, I would say, apparently it is not, but in fact it's a very sophisticated vehicle. But it was a way of trying to provide some support, some solution for that question. But we need more studies on that.
And likewise, with the work that we've been doing, looking more at that research and development side, how can that technology take on more burden so that the child can focus more on the play and the playmates can focus more on the play. For instance, one sort of technology that we're integrating is haptic feedback into our robots. So at my interface on my wheelchair, if I'm a child, I can feel what that robot is pressing or touching in the environment, but that haptic feedback can also help guide my movements. If I'm having trouble moving to a certain place, that haptic feedback can help that. And then something else that's really interesting that we've started using it for is to reprogram the things, the play tasks that we're asking the robot to do. We can't go into a situation knowing absolutely everything that a child wants to do with the toys. And so we can't pre-program every possible scenario. And so what we're doing now is having that helper in the environment help 1 or 2 times to do a demonstration. So the child's moving their interface and the helpers in the environment moving the robot the way it needs to accomplish that play task. And then that helper turns into a playmate now instead, and the child can move the robot on their own. So we're just trying to look at ways to support multiple and a variety of play activities.
Can I say something? One of the reasons why we have developed this vehicle with a ludic aspect and not a wheelchair, we could have provided the wheelchair with the same characteristics, but that would be a wheelchair. And when the child is involved in these play activities with the car, we don't allow therapists to say, go to the left, go to the right, do this, do that. No, that's they have time to do that if that is important. It's an attempt to say the most important thing that Serenella says, which is the play for the sake of play. Okay, so for them to feel free to be involved in ludic activities, and I think that's for these severely disabled children with problems of manipulation, of orientation, of mobility, and so on. All these technologies, especially the interfaces you provide them, are very important. they can't feel the interface. They can't feel that they have to do this or that and so on. That's why it's so interesting to study this field of interfaces with severely disabled children. For them, it must be a natural thing. For us, that we are the technologists, if we are that, it's probably a very complicated thing. And I don't know if what type of assistance we have here. Do you have therapists here? No. Students? ¿Estudiantes de rehabilitación? No. ¿Qué están aquí? ¿Curiosos?
Anyway.
So, mother? Yeah, very important. Okay. Many times people think that the research we make in the area of disability, it's a kind of lower research, not a very sophisticated research. It is the opposite, okay? It's much more difficult to build a robot for a child to play than to build a robot for in the space shuttle to get the satellites and bring the satellites to be repaired, because we are dealing with humans. We are not dealing only with machines. Okay, so it's really important, this area of dealing with the children and how technology can help the child and can be the support, not the most important thing, but the best support to the children.
Another thing is that children with motor impairment, when they very soon they become less assertive. They don't enter the play of the others. They become passive, and they adopt some behaviors of less concentration, less attention. And if they are active in play, if they can do by themselves things, they, of course, they becomes more happy, if you wanted, just to say very briefly, but they look more happy than usual. So this is very important too, and it is not measurable, unfortunately. And this is another aspect. And then the last consideration I would like to propose to this table is that recently in the science field it is appearing, and it is a new trend of studies, the embodied cognition. And this is something interesting also for us, because the idea is that is to rethink to the role that movement and representation of movement in the brain has for the development of the other functions of brain. For example, higher functions such as language, such as thought, and something like that. So this is very interesting for us, and I was thinking in this moment exactly to the machine, little machine of Luis, because he's doing something big in this sense. Yes.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear you, because in the last months we are studying embodied cognition in our laboratory, so I think it's a coincidence. And I wanted to ask Kim about if you have experience measuring in the difference of performing plays with robots or with virtual agents, or maybe, you know, just in a screen. I mean, nowadays we have a lot of games. People are developing games, and it's less expensive, easier to develop a game, but the immersion for the children is similar, or do they prefer something which is physical, or is the same result?
We've started trying to look at those sorts of questions, and only insofar as having real Lego robot and then a Lego robot represented on a screen. And honestly, it was surprising. We thought, sure, for sure, the kids who are using a physical robot are going to do better, but the kids who used the virtual one did just as well, which was a surprise because, you know, engineers are always saying, can't I just do this in a virtual way because it'll be so much easier than programming the robot? And we always say, no, all those physical experiences when they're younger are important. So we weren't looking at the right thing there. But what we did find out was it still has its benefits, and also children need a variety of tasks to do. The parents that we work with say, my child sits in front of a screen all the time. I'd like them to be doing something with physical play too. So having multiple options is good. Any more?
Just adding something to what Serenella referred about this. We had some preliminary measurements about how this independent mobility raised also more independent communication. All these areas, of course, in my opinion, are linked to communication, manipulation, and mobility, orientation, and so on. But we could prove, demonstrate that the children had became better communicators, even with their communication aids, when they had the opportunity to interact with their peers and interact with the adults and so on. So definitely play and independent play through mobility and so on improved their communication skills. So eventually their cognition also. I don't know if you can say this.
Let's see.
Okay. So we have some 10 minutes for your questions. Anyone in the audience that wanted to ask about the topic? Wait a moment.
Of course, yep. So one question just for the last topic that Kim addressed about the surprise that you found, well, the unexpected results that you found that simulations were just as effective as the real thing. How could we test until which point they are as effective? So I guess that right now we don't yet know if they truly are as effective, if even they are better sometimes. How can we address this gap of the knowledge we have?
Good question. And in that particular task I talked about, it was a very concrete task, just the cause and effect, inhibition, laterality, and sequencing of those switches. And then, I mean, tasks are going to become even more complex and even harder to measure. All we were looking for there was success. Were they able to do it to knock over a pile of blocks? So I would like to hear other options, other suggestions actually for comparing. And what are the things we could be looking for? Is it the cognitive development, perceptual? It's like you were saying, the smiles, like those are pretty intangible but important too. So those just noticeable differences.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? Okay, no more questions. No from the audience. Okay, would you like to add anything? No?
I have another thing that we're doing with technology.
Yeah.
As far as the access methods, like you were talking about, sometimes those physical movements are hard for children. And so we're looking at eye gaze movements to control technology, and also brain control interfaces to control, and maybe even combining those in order to be super sure that's what the intention of the child was in that play environment. It's difficult, very difficult to study, and so far a lot of work has been done with adults because that's a little bit easier, but it's really important to start studying in the pediatric area as well. And so that's a step that we're going in at the Glenrose Hospital. They've identified some children who they have such a hard time finding a physical place, even their eye gaze is difficult, so we're going to do a brain-computer interface program. So far we've worked with really playful adults to work out our system, and now we're going to work with children and in social situations as well. So it's pretty exciting, and the technology does help with some possibilities.
Good. Thank you.
Can I just add something about that? Two of the children that are in the videos use either scanning for accessing their with the switch, for accessing their communication aids, or PC, do you call it? Eye gazing through a PCI. So very, let us say, sophisticated technique. When they went to play with the car, all of them refused to have those interfaces, and they prefer to try to manipulate the console. So for us, we thought, well, they are so well prepared to access their in the computer and so on. They make wonderful things with the scanning system or with eye tracking systems, and then with the car, they really wanted to play and not
Exercise.
making other things. So that's another interesting conclusion.
So, thank you very much. I wanted to especially to thank Serenella, who has come this morning from Canada. It's a big physical effort, but also thank you for the three participants in this table. They have been really very, they have provided us with very interesting information, and they have been enthusiastic in participating in this table, so thank you again, and thank you to you to being here until this last minute. So thank you.